Curaçao's iGaming reform. New regulations, new risks, and new opportunities.
Thank you so much for being here with us. We hope it will be an exciting discussion because this autumn will mark 1-year anniversary since the Curaçao announced the shift from the master licensing regime to the direct licensing regime. So let's have a look how this journey looked like over the last year. But first, I would love to do a quick round of introductions to understand the background of our panelists. I'm the head of compliance in the iGaming Academy, and I will not drag it much later. I will just pass it to the next gentleman next to me, Mario. Can you introduce yourself and tell us about your background?
Thank you, Yuliya, and good afternoon for everyone. Mario Galea, CEO of Random Consulting. We are the suppliers to the Curaçao Gaming Board, soon to become the Curaçao Gaming Authority. We are not them. We are the cogs and the wheels, the machinery and the human labor behind the operation. This is if you are old enough in this industry, you would know that I was the CEO of the Malta Gaming Authority way back when this show didn't even exist. Since then, I've been doing many other jurisdictions like New Jersey, California, Mexico, Georgia. Curaçao is our latest gig. Doesn't mean it's our last. The guys here work with me, and I let them introduce themselves. Go on, Kevin.
Hi. So my name's Kevin. I've been in the industry for around 25 years myself. Hi. So my name's Kevin. I've been in the industry for around 25 years. I've worked for operators, I've worked for service providers, and finally I'm working with Mario after being 25 years on the other side of the table. And we're now looking into the regulations and so on of Curaçao and seeing how to sort of better the processes for everyone.
My name's Luca. I've been not as experienced as my colleagues here, but also been 12 years in the industry. I'm head of compliance with Random Consulting. Mainly also been in the consultancy industry and also as an in-house compliance officer.
What Kevin didn't say is I was the first person in Malta to go into gaming. He was the second. He used to sell me computer parts, and he came to my office and said, "What is this?" I said, "I really don't know what it is. The government told me to write this law," and that's how we became, first and second employed in the gaming industry in Malta. That was 1998. I think half of you weren't even born by then, but yeah, that's how long we go.
That's how old we are.
Like an exciting story, and that's why we're very happy to have you here. So Mario and your lovely colleagues, can you please tell us what's happening in Curaçao right now? Because I know in the very beginning when the country announced the shift from the master licensing regime to the direct licensing regime, not everybody could quite understand the major objective, why it was happening, what are the regulatory background behind it, what is now the destiny of the master licensees, is it over? Are you still allowed to operate? Is there any transaction regime? Because it's been a year in the making. And I believe lots of people have more questions rather than answers. So if you can give us an overview, we'd really appreciate it.
Actually, Yuliya, my journey with Curaçao started 3 years ago. You have to understand that probably Curaçao is the oldest jurisdiction in terms of online gaming. Malta came in 2000. Curaçao was already there 3 years before. And they had something called interactive wagering, which meant that you either played by phone, you actually called someone to register a bet, or you played online, but you still made your transactions, financial transaction, over the phone. That meant that if you wanted to make a deposit, you called an agent, gave her or him your credit card number, approve it, and hopefully it went into the right account. So Curaçao kept that law until now, really. It's still an effective law in their legislation. Things have changed. The way they were licensing in the past was they issued 4 licenses. Actually, they issued more than 4 licenses. They issued about 6, but two failed on the way. And four licenses became known as master licensors. Everybody called them master licensors, but the law does not call them that way. The law calls them license. And somehow, people started to work with these 4 master licensors over time. It was a successful business. The model did work. But the realities of today, especially when it comes to AML, compliance, a lot of operators, which in my time, I started with many operators who actually started in their bedroom. Now they are huge corporations, mostly are publicly listed. You cannot continue to operate your license in certain frameworks. And that is when, 3 years ago, I got to meet with the Minister of Finance in Curaçao, and he said, look, it's time to overhaul. That's where you go. Now, I said, what is your timeline? He said, next month. I said, well, that's what every country has told me in the past.
It's very ambitious.
I told him, France took 7 years, Spain took 5. Some others are still thinking. As I said, look at the Dutch. They are still thinking about it. So, it was about managing expectations. But we did the law, and we took it to Parliament, but we knew immediately that there is a gap. There was still a huge gap by getting that law in place into making all the changes. So that's where we swapped the whole process. The old law wasn't bad after all, because it was a broad law that allowed us to put everything in license conditions. So it's very, if you are familiar to the Lotteries and Gaming Act of 2004, that is my act when I was CEO in Malta, it was actually very similar. It's very broad, but allows you to put all the rules and the regulations in license conditions. So we kept using that law, issuing licenses, and we put everything that we wanted as license conditions. So now when you receive your license in Curaçao, you have, I think, 7 pages of license conditions, which are posted publicly anyway on our website, so you can always get to see them. That will allow us now to transition into the new law when it comes out. So I think a lot of people are asking us the questions about what would be different in the new law. In reality, very little will be different. It will define a B2B, B2C model, to give you an idea. Slightly cheaper fees, just to undercut Malta. To set up a new authority, the GCB will become the CGA. Other than that, in reality, nothing will change. So if you get a license now, I will go to use a US term, you will be grandfathered in. In reality, you have to change the license because GCB, CGA will have to issue their license. Other than that, there will be no differences from applying now and applying after the law passes. I hope that explains everything.
Do you want something to add, Kevin?
You have something to add, Kev? No.
Now, I believe the problem that we face in the media is not everybody quite understands the differences between the old structure and the new structure we're moving in. And that's why the news we get around the Curaçao is a little bit heated all the time, because we see the new application is open, you need to get a license, certain number of companies being approved, they get the seals of approval and such. And people are a bit confused because they do not quite understand the direct licensing application that's being open and how it works, and what are the new requirements, and what kind of documents you have to submit, and what kind of conditions you need to meet now in order to be approved as a direct licensee. Because before, as you said, you've been getting in touch with the master licensee, even though they're not called this way in the regulation, and you had a set of the licensing conditions you had to meet. So it was a shifting of liability from the master licensee to the sub-licenses, and they had to agree on the conditions between each other. Now, the direct license application shifts the responsibility directly to the company who is applying for a license. And the application process, I believe it's pretty straightforward. But maybe it would be beneficial to walk through the application process, and you can tell us the existing numbers, the interest around it, how many applications may be being received, if you're aware, and what are the requirements now to successfully pass through the application.
Actually, the best person is Luca. We do have a presentation, but
I think we do.
where do I point?
Yeah, you have application.
There it is. Luca, you can explain this much better than me. Well, just to let you know, now my role in the company is development only. So they relegated me to the last seat of the company.
Right. So basically, we have around 850 applications at the moment. We have issued almost 300 so far. Still a long way to go, but we're getting there slowly. I mean, the chart you can see is pretty self-explanatory. There are mainly 3 stages. So once a new application comes in, it's at the verification stage. The application forms are vetted, making sure everything is in order. And upon completing there, it goes into the due diligence stage, where we look at the individuals behind the company, the websites, the registered domains, the corporate structure, and all of that good stuff. From that, we generally issue a few checklists, we call them, basically questions to clarify certain points that we find in the application. And once those are clarified, it passes on to the suitability stage, where we have a final review of everything that we've seen in the application and the preparation of a final report that goes to the GCB, who will then review again and issue the license to the operator.
Do you see any problems maybe, or any, I don't know, areas where you feel that the applicants might need a little bit more support? Like any, I don't know, complications?
In terms of pay points, we have many. But if you are familiar with our application, with our portal, those tags you see there are actually what you see on the portal in real time. One of the things that, from what we learned from other jurisdictions, is that the portal in Curaçao is actually a real-time portal. Therefore, you are really seeing what the people in the back office are doing. And therefore, we have a lot of complaints about people. I'm seeing my application on hold. In reality, that's because somebody in the office has just asked you for something and put the application on hold for you to upload it. So your application is not on hold. It's just we were waiting for you to put something on. As soon as you put it on, it's you who switch it back into progress. So it's a bit of a learning process for everyone. I mean, this is real-time applications. If you are quick enough, your application will speed through. If you leave us on hold, we have to wait for you. So it is very important for, Luca mentioned checklists, that you are actually logging into the portal to check where your status is. Because we have a lot of complaints. People go on the certificate and it says status on hold. And everybody panics. It is, the on hold means we need your information. And you, once you put it on, flick it, and it becomes into progress again.
But then you also mentioned that you're testing the use of AI technology to speed up the process and make it seamless. How does it work?
So yes, so this is an, anybody who knows me knows that I am always trying to be one step ahead of the operator. So from a regulatory point, we have now brought in an AI solution. It's a challenge because you have to bring it on premises. It's not on the cloud, so no documents are shared on the cloud. The idea is we are feeding it all the information we have, including business plans, including all the information that's been granted to us. And the AI is helping us, not really at the moment, it's lying about a lot of things, to learn, to help us speed up, to process more effectively, hopefully, and to get a better knowledge of what our operators are doing. Some information that we discovered, for example, is predominantly all our operators, and the big number, have actually crypto. We know now that we are probably the largest jurisdiction to work with crypto. So the first thing we are feeding it is, okay, how can we improve now the regulation of crypto? How are we going to help those operators be able to implement crypto better for their operations as we go along? And we are coming out with guidelines. There's going to be some stakeholders meetings to get your feedback from you. But they are really, really innovative when it comes to, for example, for crypto for sure. So yeah, that's where the AI helps.
But for example, let's imagine you mentioned cryptocurrencies, and we all know that the majority of the operators under the Curaçao license used to accept cryptocurrencies even before we moved to direct licensing regime. So for example, take a company who've been operating on the market for some time and they've been accepting cryptocurrencies. Now they file further application to get the direct license. And in their business plan, they indicate that they're accepting cryptocurrencies as a means of payments. The business planning requires some sort of calculation in the risk assessments as well. But as you mentioned, you're still trying to improve the structure and draft like more detailed guidance around it. Does it mean that the business structure or even the operational structure of the companies who are going through the application right now might be adjusted at some point later on?
That's a very, very, very interesting area because, as Mario said, we are probably the most crypto-friendly jurisdiction at the moment. We're also seeing demands from software suppliers, platform providers, and so on, which wish to service crypto casinos from a B2B perspective, where they want to segregate the crypto risk or be exclusive in crypto. Many times we're finding software providers who have to switch back to fiat and so on, where the end users at times, they want to just keep everything in crypto. So we've got exterior partners helping us from a risk management point of view, assessing the best models we should have in place with regards to the funds management of different cryptocurrencies. But we've already started speaking to the largest stakeholders in the crypto and casinos for their guidance too. I don't know, previously when we worked with Mario, we like to listen to many different opinions. And this is very, very important that as consultants to the regulator, we want to hear different opinions, different solutions to try and come up with the sort of most practical solution.
Very happy to hear it. That's a very cooperative approach. Now, that sounds great, very promising. What happens when the application is processed? So let's say it's get approved. I know that you are currently issuing the digital seals. How do they look like? How to get a seal? What does it showcase? Can you tell us a little bit more about it?
Mario is the seal guy.
So, what we call the certificate server. It actually does two things. First of all, when you submit a domain name under the portal, it is manually verified by our team, and there is a check that is automatic, that we make sure that you have taken the token that is supplied to you by the portal, and you have inserted it as a TXT record in your domain. In that way, we know that you are the real owner of that domain. So that's the first check. And that is why somebody says, oh, why my domain is showing unverified? That is because we haven't come to that stage to check your domain. That is the first part. The second part is when you put the GCB seal on your website, if anybody have really looked at it, it's not a graphic, it's not a .png or a JPEG. It's actually a web. Why? Because itself is a program. Itself is a program. And we probably have the largest, I'm going to make most of you jealous, because we have probably the largest database of players in the world. We see every IP of every player, where they are coming from, and even if they are using a VPN. We collect millions and millions of IPs every day, checking and relaying the data in our systems to know where the operators are working from. If then the user actually clicks on the GCB seal, it sends them to the certificate server, which we also monitor. So we also know who clicked on the certificate server, and the certificate comes up. However, that certificate, and this is where a lot of people get confused, that is a domain certificate, not your license certificate. In fact, it says this domain is operated by this company, which is licensed by the GCB. If you have been given a license, if you go in your portal, you have a QR code which you can share then with your service providers. Once the service providers receive that QR code, they can see your real license certificate. So if somebody says, I really want to see that you are licensed in Curaçao, you go in, download your QR code, send it to them, they scan it, and the license comes up. That QR code, by the way, changes. In fact, every time you request it, a new QR code comes up. So this keeps your certificate private. Unfortunately, the GCB 3 months ago threw the spanners in the works when they came up with the idea of the orange seal. Now, jokes apart, the orange seal is a very good idea. Because we were in transition between the master licensor to the new, from indirect to direct licensing, those operators who were in Curaçao under the master licensors and have applied for a license, we are letting them to continue to operate as normal business, okay? However, because they have not yet been verified, as you can see in the diagram, it doesn't go through that manual process to get verified. That process was given to the master licensors to do, and if you remember, we had the dates of May, April, and then we extended it. That was for that approval. Unfortunately, there were still that didn't do it. So we are still dealing with some fallout from that, but we are sorting that. So the GCB doesn't get, you don't need to put a TXT record because you don't have, for now, the same operations as that, but eventually you will have. What a lot of people are missing is next to your domain, there is a little button with 2 arrows. that allows you to transfer domains between licenses. So you can transfer between sub-license to application, application, and back. And by the way, in Curaçao, you can get multiple licenses under the same company. So if you start multiple licenses, you can then transfer domains, and you don't have to come to the regulator. You can do that yourself. So, you know, this is a little bit of co-regulation. We trust you to do that yourself, you know? So you can change domains between licenses or sub-license. That's up to you. We're not going to do your job, okay? Everything is manageable from the back. But yes, we get a lot of questions. Keep asking us if you have problems, but it is a very simple system. And keep in mind, it is really active. I'm not going to, you know, put under jurisdictions under the bus, but normally the seal is a PNG, right? This is not. This is actually a worker. For those people who understand, this is a worker on Cloudflare. We have big systems on Cloudflare that are real-time processing all the requests there are for that seal.
I think it's quite difficult to wrap up your mind about the procedure because most people just get used to having the seal of verification attached to the license. In this case, you have a double approval because you approve the license, but at the same time, you need to verify each and every domain. And that is why you have an opportunity to transfer them there and back, simply because all the domains are verified anyway. And as long as they're verified and you do have the information about the ownership of each and every domain, you can give the licensees the free hand to move them around between different licensees, which is a great idea. But unfortunately, I think it will take some time till we actually navigate through and understand how it works. But sounds like a double verification, very secure to me. Like, I would say it makes total sense.
Something small about also the seals is the ticket people. So when sending a ticket, they are totally informative about the way the seals work, because we have so many sort of queries about the seals. So do send tickets because they're totally like up to date with what's happening.
All right, brilliant. So let's say we have everything approved. So what happens next? What are the obligations of the direct licensees moving on in Curaçao?
Okay. At the moment, the reporting obligations aren't clear. So the post-licensing requirements have not been issued yet. The new legislation is going through Parliament very soon, and we have been told that it might be out by the end of the year. And we're hoping that that will clear out and a lot of the post-licensing requirements and reporting obligations that the new licensees will have.
At the moment, the only things that we require from you is if you have change in UBO, so change in control of the company, you have to file it. If you have change in the business plan, so we are starting to see operators, for example, coming and say, oh, now I want a B2B. To be honest with you, to need a B2B, you don't really need to tell us. You actually go into your portal, under organization, go info, it shows what operation you do, click on B2B, and you're done. And all you will probably need is a new business plan if you are going to operate your B2B. Submit your B2B, the system will raise a ticket to us, and we will review your latest business plan. There is going to be the requirements of the compliance officer. The guidelines should be issued soon by the GCB. There are, obviously, because of that, we are going to ask for more information about the compliance officer. So that's going to be another thing. There is one requirement already, I think it's Article 15 of the license conditions, about incident reporting. I think I have a slide about that. Oh, yes, I do. This is important, really important, because the worst thing that can happen is if we receive the information not from you. And it already happened a couple of times. That's bad. So if you have an incident, whatever the incident is, please report it. For now, it's a ticket. We're bringing in a module soon for you to enter the information. But send us a report with your license number, the date of the breach when it happens, and its duration. What was the nature of the breach? If you are ISO, whatever, 27,000, you know how to do this because it's a standard report. Consequence of the breach and the measures taken. We review that. We have a special department who is responsible for cyber intelligence, actually. They review that. They also even map it on our data. We have tools, don't worry. I mean, if you are familiar, we have things like digital stakeout. So, we can trace you, back engineer you, even from your TikTok users, if we want to, okay? Don't think of us as the normal regulator. We have more toys than you, operators. Believe us. We love them. So we can do a lot and help you if you are in a problem. That has to be reported, I think, according to your conditions within 48 hours, if I remember correctly. So don't let the player report it, or let us hear it from the news, because it's worse. Then, those are the post-licensing. In the future, you have also to do reporting. So there will be reports that you have to send, most probably monthly, but don't quote me on that. They might be slightly different. And yes, if you have read the new law, somewhere it says you must have servers in Curaçao with the data. It refers for those reports. It doesn't mean that you have to have the servers in Curaçao. You have to have that report in Curaçao, because if the regulator needs it, it can obtain it, okay? So there will be a reporting server where you store these reports. They take a few K each, so don't worry. It's a very small server. Raspberry Pi would be great. But that will come in the future, not now. You will have time to implement those.
Great. As long as you're here and we can ask any questions and clarifications. Let's bring it a little bit back to the MRLOers and the requirements for them. I know that apart from the MRLOers, the new regulation mentions the key persons. And now, following the procedures we have in the UK on the MGA, most people within the industry, when they hear key persons, what they think about is the PML license in the UK or the key function here in Malta. And they get confused because they don't quite understand who exactly these roles should be to qualify for the key persons. Will there be any approval mechanism? How is it going to work in practice? Because the regulation mentions this, but very briefly, I believe there are several paragraphs on this topic. So apart from the MRLO, anybody else who needs to be designated, approved, relocated, what are the consequences?
To be honest, we know as much as you on this, but the GCB, as I said, there is going to be a compliance procedure for this. But this is a quirk in Curaçao's law. A compliance officer applies to all companies, not gaming companies. So for them, even for us, it took us a long time to understand. When Curaçao, they talk about compliance officer, they are thinking about someone in the company who has to do with AML. Another thing, Curaçao uses the US model rather than the European model. And there is something called UTR, Unusual Transaction Report. Now, if you are used to American casinos, what we call the big win, you have to report if the amount is bigger than 2,000, no matter what. And same with Curaçao. It doesn't mean it's suspicious. We only do suspicion. I mean, Europeans are always suspicious. So the UTR is a mechanical report. You can actually put a rule in your system and say, if this transaction went over 2,000, send the report. And that's it. Funnily enough, this is putting the responsibility on the regulator rather than on you, because they have to now to take further steps. It's a UTR. It has nothing to do with what we are doing as STRs, right? Now, if you are a crypto casino, it's challenging, And we're coming for a solution for that. We have solutions that are coming. But my best recommendation on that is to wait for the guidelines that will be issued, and then if we see that we need to develop them more, for sure we'll do.
Just adding something small to the compliance officer, it's no longer required for the B2Bs. So the B2Bs, similar to Europe, despite the legal requirement in Curaçao for a compliance officer for every company, we are not requesting it for the B2Bs, or not us, GCB.
Now, that's good news, I guess, for the majority of the B2Bs. Do you now expect any big questions? What are people usually struggling with? Because I'm asking as a compliance officer on top of my mind, but operational issues, any big questions coming up, anything you anticipate and you still need to define a bit better in the regulation? Any tips you can give us at this point?
Source of wealth, source of funds. So it's Luca who deals with these things, and he sees all these questions.
Luca, if we want to apply for a license and we want to be okay on the market a year later, top tips.
Good ownership, good source of wealth, definitely helps things along. I think that's the biggest pain point we're finding with applications, and a lack of information in the business plan as well, and the financial statements and projections for newer companies.
I think I'm pretty sure, in 2024, everybody has a good scanner. So when you scan a passport, make sure it looks slightly similar to the copy that you made, okay? Because many times we receive passports which are, it's like, how the heck did they manage to certify a true copy of this? And again, if you do a certified true copy of a passport or a birth certificate, and you translate it, we also need this translation certified, right? Because, hey, I'm trying to read a Russian birth certificate issued in the Soviet Union in Vladivostok of somebody who is Ukrainian, okay, and his mother was Georgian. I have to go and look in every piece of the world to bring it together. Try to make it clear for me, at least, one of the things we see is lack of clarity in actually following our own procedures. Even source of wealth and source of funds. There is a difference between the two, okay? They don't mean the same. And that's why sometimes we say, for this we want source of wealth, and for this one we need source of funds. If you come with a UBO whose asset is a car and a van, you're not getting a license, okay? For sure. So make sure that your UBOs make sense, okay? Because, if we want to have a very good time at our office, it's just going over some UBOs. You really have to make a good effort to us to help you move with the licenses. Those are the major pain points that we see. But there is another pain point, which it's not really hits us, it actually hits you. Most of what we are noticing is most of the operators who were sub-licensed especially transposed their structure into the direct license. That structure was made for your indirect license, where you were under the umbrella, protected by the master licensor. Nobody is thinking, excuse my language, now that the shit hits the fan, it comes to me directly. So look at your structures, because now we're seeing people coming back to us and say, do I have the right structure? No, you don't. And really, next time I see you, you're going to be in an orange suit. So make sure that you have the right structure in place. have distributors, have agreements in place who is giving you services. One of the things we are missing, you send us the financial statement, zero. Okay, where do you operate? Do you have agreements for KYC? Player management, fund management? We never thought of those. So we are going to ask you for those soon because we start the audits in March, April. We start with the audits. So you rather better have those things in place because you are really going to suffer then. That is something which I can foresee. I mean, I've been regulator now for 30 years. Name it, and I've been there. That's where I see the biggest problems always come, when we start asking those questions.
Looks like you're having lots of fun recently. I think we are happy to take several questions if you have any before we wrap it up because we still have some time. Yeah, great. I can actually give my microphone.
Hi. Okay. I'll give it back to you in a minute. So one question would be around enforcement. Does this work? Yeah. So one question would be around enforcement. How will it work? Because rules are always good, but if they're not enforced, they're worth nothing. So I've seen other regulators, other jurisdictions. Some are very relaxed on enforcement. Some have changed the tune, are very strict. Are you going to have an enforcement unit that goes out, actively checks everyone is playing by the rules? You mentioned you know all the IP addresses of all your players. Will you, if you see, for example, someone takes bets from banned countries, are they going to get a knock on the door to say, stop this? How will the enforcement culture be and the enforcement, the methods?
So right now, in Curaçao has the harshest enforcement. It's in the law. You get suspended. Obviously, we are not employing that because that puts you out of business straight away. The law will be changed in the law to bring in what in Malta we call administrative fines. Okay? We do have, when we come to the audits, we are going to review your systems. You will receive the same checklist that you receive today to change your things, if there are things to be changed, but we will give you a chance to do those. In terms of us going around and checking whether you are coming from a banned country or not, that's not our job. Our job is different. You do your own risk assessment. You know what the rules are. You apply those rules. We are not going to apply those rules for you. Again, if you are used to my, people call them my regulations because, the Malta, New Jersey, Georgia, they are all the same coming from me and they are always the same. You will have the same reporting methods. So monitoring will be done through our reporting, and reporting will mean that you will have to report coin in, coin out, deposits in totals. Total deposits, total withdrawals, number of games played per operator, per B2B operator, etc., etc. So that is the monitoring that will be done. Okay? That is the monitoring that will be done as we go along. I repeat, we do have a challenge with crypto, but we are already working on that. So that is something we are working already, as Kevin said, with some operators to see how to do it. But yes, if you've seen my slide, it did say that a license can get rejected. And there has been already some rejections.
Any questions?
I told you, Yuliya, it was very clear for everyone.
Hello. Could you tell us, please, more about responsible gaming standards?
So at the moment, there is, again, these have to be published. In the new law, they are part of the law. At the moment, they are not part of license conditions properly. There is something that comes from the other law that you have to allow players to self-exclude. So that is, it is there. Most probably, it's going to be the same methods that we have in other countries. We're not reinventing the wheel when it comes to responsible gaming. Again, I refer to crypto because in crypto we have certain issues, how you register a player and knowing, age limits, for example. Challenges we have to work on, but mostly expect something similar like every other jurisdiction.
Yeah, we also got a question.
So I have a question going back to what you said about the IPs. So as a regulator, you'll be able to see where is the customer being connected from, and even if they see the VPN. And I think going back to the question from Mr. that asked at the very beginning, as a regulator, if you see that the operator is opening its website to Netherlands, UK, France, based on what you said, it's on the operators to receive a fine, the risk of having a fine, and you won't say anything about that?
We don't send the fine. The fine will be sent by the country where you operate it, not by us.
Exactly, which means Curaçao will not legally forbid operators to operate in those countries.
No, your regulation, your license conditions already says you cannot operate in the territories of the Kingdom of the Netherlands. So that includes Curaçao and the Netherlands. You can't operate on the United States for money laundering purposes, really. But that's where it stops.
So last question, if I may. So if you indeed see IPs coming from Netherlands, what will happen then to the operator?
Well, we do see IPs coming from Netherlands. And the next thing we see is the operator being taken to court. Most of what's happening, and this is really, really foolish from many of the operators, is Dutch players have become very, very smart. They are going on VPNs. They put themselves somewhere in Asia. They play big time. They lose, flip on the VPN off, show they are from the Netherlands, and whack you with a court case in Curaçao. You invited it. This is why I keep saying to operators today, bring in the tools to make sure that you do not take players from countries you don't want to be risked with. I've been an operator myself. I had systems myself. Don't tell me that those systems don't exist. I know they exist. Make sure that you have, don't go for, the small, tiny market to piss off the Dutch. The world is very big. Take those markets.
Do we have any more questions? And maybe you can catch up later and ask all the questions you have. And thank you so much, gentlemen. It was insightful.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.